Welcome everybody to this session. We've been looking forward to discussing the license model for Domino going forward with all of you. And without further ado, I will simply switch the color code here, and we will talk about Domino and add-on product licensing and the new way we do this. We've been working hard for a while on understanding how to license Domino going forward and finding a model that will work for all the use cases that we know of. And I'd like to go through what the Domino Complete Collaboration Business Edition, the CCB model, is all about. Why do we do it? What is the model? Who are the user constituents? How to increase the value of the model? How to understand the user classes? How do you configure CCB? How do you count the users? And how to actually get to CCB licensing? The reason we did this is feedback from a lot of customers and partners and sessions we've had with user groups and at the last factory tours, where we have discussed intensely what we should be doing for licensing going forward. There was a couple of key messages we got from everybody. Let's get rid of the PVU measurement for servers, because PVU is a nightmare to manage. And by the way, a constant issue when changing server hardware or server setup, that you had to go relicense whatever you had because suddenly you had a different capacity. Also, find a simple way of counting users instead of having any complex metric that we need to control. And let's make sure we can start extending the digital reach of the company, very much along the lines, as you heard in the keynotes, that what we're all about is really how do you extend your digital transformation? How do you reach your external constituents with your digital solutions? And that is exactly part of what we've done with this license model. Also want to make sure we have clear rules for how you work with Domino Vault on top of Domino, clear rules for how do you work with the service and what you can attach to the service, and how do you manage interoperability of servers in multi-vendor type environments. So what is it? It's very simple. It is a per user everything model. You basically license Domino per user. You have for user access to any client, any protocol, any server capacity. You can run any application, including your enterprise email and any mobile setup. It's a very simple metric because it's simply measured per user, and you have a complete use of the Domino platform. If we dive a little bit more into it, what we wanted to do was optimize the whole licensing, and we have looked at who are the user constituents that are working with your setup. So first of all, let's look at the employees and contractors. So anyone that works directly for the enterprise that are licensed and need to use Domino, they need to be a CCB user. Very simple. Employees, contractors, anyone working for the enterprise, they must be licensed as CCB users. This is the model that we're going to pursue for all new customers, and for gradually transitioning existing customers to this model. One of the things that we're doing is making this a base for various add-ons. One of the things that we have already included in this, as you can see on the slide, is that CCB licensing Domino now adds SafeLinks 1.1 to all CCB users. So SafeLinks is now included with CCB, and as a consequence, you have access to a world-class reverse proxy, the world-class VPN for all the users licensed on the CCB, which is a very significant addition to the Domino setup. Also, they have all the enterprise mail averse. They have all the mobile capabilities of Nomad and Comet Nomad Web. So it's a very simple way of licensing your users to do anything they need going forward. So if we then look at who the users are, we made an announcement earlier in July, and you can see there's a blog post I put out there about guest users and including with CCB. And what we did was simply saying that there are a number of people out there that your web applications work with and should reach. And actually, the value of the application to the enterprise is exactly that it reach the internet users. So we decided to include with the CCP license your ability to run websites, so have anonymous users browse websites, have them fill contact forms so they actually become more known users, have them, support anonymous blog comments, participate in surveys, and so forth. So general anonymous web use is included with the CCP license. You do not need to pay any additional things to do that. We also allow people to create a known setup for themselves. So if you need to reach people to have a higher engagement with some of your external constituents, they are allowed to become known users, and a known user can log in and can do simple things like start a workflow, can participate in special interest forums. You can provide tailored content to known users, and they can add blog contents. So a lot of simple actions on the web are permissible for your web users, all included with the CCP license. But there are more users out there that you want to engage more tightly with. So in order for you to be able to fully run your digital reach, we also add a new type of user, the so-called external user, the Complete Collaboration External User, or CCX, which is an add-on to CCP. It is a simple way for you at an attractive price to enroll external users to become, have access to all your workflows and applications. And that includes also Domino Vault if that's installed. So a CCX user can use any application or workflow, but cannot create any application or workflow. And likewise, a CCX user cannot have a personal mail set up on the enterprise system. But I think that's perfectly natural by nature of what you want to do when you reach out to people. They can participate in task or functional mail as appropriate in workflows, but they cannot have their own personal mail accounts. Now, not only can you add users to it, there are also functional add-ons that you can do. And what we have done is we have, first of all, allowed you to add same time. So we have an attractive price for adding the new same time 11.5 premium. You can simply add it per user. So you can upgrade your CCP users to become full same time premium users as well for meetings and chats. And you also can add Domino Vault as a platform. So you simply, when you're a new CCP licensing or at any point in time, you can upgrade your whole environment to include Vault, which makes Vault available to all the CCP users and, by the way, to the CCX users also, or for that matter, all the external web users. So your anonymous web users can actually participate in Vault surveys and so forth. That is all part of the licensing you have if you add Vault to a CCP setup. Another bonus of adding Vault to the Domino setup is that you actually get the HCL Enterprise Integrator and the SAP connector for the entire Domino setup you have. So adding Vault permits you to use the Enterprise Integrator and the SAP connector for your entire Domino real estate if it's added Vault is added to CCP, which is a very attractive and a very attractive price-wise, also extension to everything we provide. Now, to sum up on the user constituents, we have basically three classes of users. There are the CCP users, which are all your employees or contractors, anyone in licensee's enterprise. So that enterprise will set up the CCP license. They must ensure that anyone working for the enterprise, they have a CCP entitlement. That's their permission to use that environment. We don't price this per function. It is priced for the platform. So it's not like saying that you pay for this function or that function, or this guy can be a developer, this guy can use email, this guy can use this or that. It is a platform. And we consider this a platform that adds value to everybody. So we do not differentiate on functions, but simply have provided at what we consider an average per user price for using the platform for the enterprise. That pricing, as I mentioned before, include all guest users, both anonymous guests and known guests, and enable the ability to add a CCX user to the platform. And then point two, yes, all guests and known guests, they are integral to the web apps, and therefore they are included with the CCP license. They can access and use applications, but it's limited what they can do with the applications. They can basically read information and act as readers in an application and not actually fully participate in all aspects of a workflow or all aspects of a application. It all depends a little bit on the application, of course, but if you need to extend the full value of any of your applications or workflows, use the CCX entitlement to actually do that. And that is, again, also priced for the value of it, not per function. So it's simply a way of adding external users one by one to this environment. The way we configure it is basically that you set up your Domino servers. A Domino server is entitled by the CCP users. You can set up any number of Domino servers in any configuration you want. It's all fine. The only thing you need to remember is that it is only the CCP users and the associated guest or CCX users that are permitted to actually access those servers. Those servers are not available for anyone else because they are uniquely for the CCP users, which says that if you have any former older entitlements or lapsed entitlements of any messaging, collaboration, express, CEO licensing, dual entitlement, whatever, any of those, they can actually not access the CCP licensed servers because they are only for the CCP and guest and CCX users. The servers as such can participate in any kind of server-to-server replication with any licensed server. That's absolutely fine. That's also how you can, migrate from one set of environments to another if you need to. And your Domino servers under CCP can also fully participate in any SMTP setup. There's no limitation in that. We also permit, and very clearly have stated that now in the license, that directory lookup and authentication. So your Domino servers can act as an LDAP service for other programs, for non-HCL Domino programs. And by the way, in order to enable some of the partner programs that we have out there that manage calendar interoperability and calendar lookup, those servers under CCP permit access to free busy time information for any program. So we do not need to have another license for a program to do that. They are absolutely perfectly fine that they do this kind of actions with a CCP licensed server.
Lucy, we're nearly out of time. So.
Yep. And then all the user restrictions are sort of managed from a Domino viewpoint, so that the CCP users had the full access to everything, and Vault also. Again, guest users, CCX users, they can use any app, but cannot create or maintain Domino Vault apps. And known guests, they have read-only access to your applications. That is basically how this whole thing is set up and how it's managed. So last thing about this is how you actually count the users. We will provide, and was mentioned in some of the roadmap sessions already, that version 12 will include a Domino license reporting tool that will simply create an internal report for you to assist you in license compliance. This is not something that's shared with HCL. It's a report for you that you can use, also with HCL, of course, in negotiating licensing, but this is basically how we will try to manage it. You count the CCP users. It's very simple. Anyone that in your enterprise directories can log in, they are a user, and you can, from the total set of users, deduct those that are marked as being external or those that are guests, and that's very simple. The resulting number is the CCP users. For now, it's up to the administrators to do this counting, which would be relatively straightforward. But for version 12, we will start producing a license report to that effect. So how do you actually get to CCP? So let me pass the word over to Tony for a few minutes.
Hi, hello everyone. Excuse me. So if you're on complete enterprise option, then come and talk to us, and we can switch you on a one-to-one basis at no additional cost onto CCB licensing, so you can get access to those additional features. If you're on Collaboration Express, we can do the same thing. So come and talk to us, and we can move you from Collaboration Express onto CCB licensing. If you have a Utility Server Express, then that's a server-only model. You need to come and see us, and we can talk about how you can move from that platform into a CCB CCX environment. But we'll need to talk about what you're doing with the utility server to do that. Enterprise Client Access License and Enterprise Pro PVUs will take the total value of those on your renewal, and we'll switch you to the right number of CCB licenses, giving you that extra value and that ability to add same time and Vault onto your licenses. Messaging Express is just messaging, so stay where you are if all you're doing is messaging. And Domino Messaging Client Access License and the PVUs will do the same thing with those, add them all together, divide them by the number of users, and move you on to CCB. So we'd like you to move on to CCB. We'd like you to do that at no cost where we can. So where we have a user count basis for your current licensing, we'll move you for a zero cost uplift to you, except the annual uplift, to move you across onto the one-to-one licensing. We can do that at renewal time. That's the easiest time to do it, but we can do that midterm if we need to. So talk to your partner or talk to your PSS internally at HCL, and we can make that happen for you. Back to you, Uffe.
Okay, thanks, Tony. And so just, summing up here, we did introduce this as a new simple license model. It supports actually, at least what we've seen so far, all current customer use cases. There are some special things happening for solution providers, which we're working on, and some of these people already know because they have seen the presentation. We had some discussions around it, and we are indeed working with some of our existing solution providers that use Domino as an integral part of their capabilities on how these models can work for them, because we want to be able to support any appropriate use of Domino. Again, if you have any questions about the CCB licensing or for that matter, other licensing questions, please contact your product specialist from HCL or your business partner, and they will be happy to help you out. We have left some time in this session to answer questions. I'm not privy of what questions have coming in because I can't see that screen, but I think that Tony or Devin can see it.
So Christian Henseller has asked, so I have two domains, and in one domain are my users, the natural people, the actual people accounts. So I know I need a CCB license for them. You do. If it's a person that's accessing the system, they need a license. But some of these users in that domain, also in the second domain, have functional IDs to fulfill a job role. Do they need an additional license for that functional job account, or is this usage already covered by CCB license?
Well, that depends on how what that secondary domain is set up like. But in general, any user needs to be licensed. So yes, you have then quote unquote a personal ID in domain 1, and you have a functional ID in domain 2, but that is actually 2 IDs, and will be counted as such under the current model.
Okay, we have another question.
Yep. So, number of questions. Go on.
A number of questions. I don't know if you saw these other questions that came in there, and they're actually in the chat, not the Q&A.
Oh,
this is Michael Borak is asking, in what units are you going to count external users? In per user, per 100 users, per 1,000 users? Some scenarios, like public projects, require to build an app for hundreds or thousands of users, such as a municipal portal.
But that's exactly where we think that you should be looking at the known guests and not necessarily looking at CCX, because if you have, like, a lot of external users like a municipal portal, sure, there's stuff that people want to go do. They want to get some specific tailored content from the municipalities that provide it to them, and they need to register for certain things like whatever garbage collection, what do I know? But that is exactly what is covered under the guest or the known guest model. And they would not necessarily need full access to read and write content in an application. They just need to submit stuff and get receipts for what they've submitted and get some tailored content. So that should be covered. What's the intention that would be covered by the known guest included with the CCP license.
So I'll pick up the next question. So known guests were defined as a depositor in terms of Domino HCL. With this setting, they could not consume tailored content. Did you reconsider?
No,
it's okay if I've got it. Just let me finish. And Grant, now author, have we now granted author access? No, we haven't. So we're allowing reader access with the ability to post public documents, and this combination allows you to submit new documents. If you want the details on how to do that, then we can get Thomas to contact you directly and talk you through exactly how that's done.
Yeah.
Devin, do you want to go next?
Oh, sure. I'll be happy to. I had
we can switch.
Thinking you were going to handle that.
Between the chat. If there are more questions in the chat, I've got the Q&A. I don't have the chat. So.
All right. Let me grab the next question out of the chat. Boom, boom, boom. There's another question about will mail-in databases be continued to need no license?
The database in itself, a mail-in database, if it does not include like an ID file or any kind of web credentials, you don't need a license for it. If it has an ID file with it and you can log into it, it needs a license.
So that's about managing your user IDs and access effectively.
But having a mail address is perfectly valid. It's the mail address as such and the mail in does not require a license per se.
So my next question here is, what about express licenses? There are no express licenses now. CCB covers and CCX covers everything. So if you're one user, you're on CCB. If you're 100,000 users, you're on CCB.
Yep.
Nice, simple, easy, straightforward, which is what we're.
But again, what was unique about Express licensing, well, there were a couple of things with it. First of all, there was a limit to how many users you could be under Express, you could not have more than 1,000 users on an Express license. That's one thing, and that limitation is gone with CCB. And as Tony mentioned earlier, someone on Collaboration Express, we can move you price neutral to CCP licensing, so there should be no issue with that.
So there's a question here. Are we planning to license external same-time users? No, external same-time users are free. They can't create or set up a meeting, but you can invite as many people outside your organization to meetings as you wish. There's no cost to that. As long as the person inside is licensed, then you're good. Kind of sideways question, but I know the answer, so that one's good.
Here's another question. And Wojciech, I'm sorry, I probably destroyed your name, and I apologize for that. I'm not going to try and say it again because won't do it justice. Question is, what about test IDs, technical or group IDs, such as secretary@domain.com as such? Do we need a license for every ID, although the number of real users is not changing?
Well, if you have a number of test IDs, yes, the test IDs needs to be licensed as well, because we license every ID, and that should not be a real issue, we think. Again, it's a total volume of IDs that are licensed. And if you have an environment where you need to have, there's a couple of developers, sure, they need an ID. They need some test user IDs, good. They license those test user IDs, and that's it. And simply, again, a simple way of managing and counting everything.
Okay, we've got a minute and a half left. Tony will take the last question, and then any other questions are not answered, I will write them up and I will send them to Ufi, and so he and Tony can respond to them at a later time. But we've only got time for one question.
So, does licensing start with Domino 12, or is it already in Domino 11? No, you can go with it right now. So in fact, you could have gone with it from 10.
And as a matter of fact, the version 11.01 CCP license information is available on our public website for license information. It is there.
There are a number of other questions. We will have to take those offline because we're running out of time. But Daniel, very interesting question about API users. But we'll address those. We'll address those offline.
Yep. Good. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining, and enjoy the rest of the factory tour. It's been very exciting to participate in some of the happy hours and coffee breaks. So we'll see you there. Take care. Bye now.